They're dead, Dave.
What, Captain Hollister?
Everybody's dead, Dave.
What, Todd Hunter? What, Selby? Not Jen.
He's dead, Dave. Everybody is dead. Everybody is dead, Dave.
Hello everyone, and welcome back to Everybody's Dead Dave, our Red Dwarf review podcast, which is hosted by myself, Adam Martyn, and as always, my co-host...
Phil Hawkins, that's me.
That's right, that's him. And today we are on Series 5, Episode 3, Terrorform. Now, halfway through Series 5 officially. As we've always said, I'll do it very quickly. If you're new, I'm new to Red Dwarf, first time viewing. Phil's been watching it for many years, so two completely different perspectives. Sometimes we share the same view, sometimes we don't. So come along and join us. So this one, Phil, we're part of Series 5, so we're in 1992 when this first came out.
1992. I remember it well.
I was going to say, do you remember it well? Was it a good
No,
year?
not really. I mean, I vaguely remember it. I would have been about 7.
Oh, bless you. It was just on the Olympics, because we're recording this, the Olympics ago, and it was the Barcelona Games of 1992. Little fun fact for you there.
Wow.
Love my dates. But anyhow, the synopsis for Terraform is, after Crichton evades destruction, he and the other lads from the Dwarf set out to find Rimmer on what is known as a Psymoon, an artificial planetoid which terraforms itself to match the inner psyche and subconscious of anyone who lands on it. It's quite an intriguing synopsis, and I've got to admit, Phil, the way this starts, it was quite a dramatic way for it to start for a Red Dwarf episode.
It was, but can I just say, they've crashed it again. They keep crashing the Starbug. Like, how many times?
They keep getting more.
I know they have at least 2, but come on, they can't have an unlimited supply of these things. Like,
do you think that was a continuity? The creators were like, we can't be bothered to explain just infinite amount of Starbugs, maybe? Because they just, you're right, they just keep going through them. Poor Starbug.
Every time they destroy one, the scutters are on board Red Dwarf, readily assembling another one. Ready to go.
What happened to Blue Midget?
Oh, wow.
Okay, who knows?
Who knows?
Blue Midget's gone.
They had a set and they wanted to just reuse the same set. So they stopped using Blue Midget.
Poor Blue Midget. Valid, anyway. But yeah, very, very dramatic, very apocalyptic. Gave me some, if anyone's seen the original Terminator, you know, the scenes in the future, like the apocalypse, it very much felt shot like that. And of course, Crichton's he's not in a good way, is he?
He's trying to reboot. He's I liked the hold music that kind of came on while he was sort of powered down again, because he briefly powers on, tries to fix it, and then something's going to go on in the background, so he's sort of power save mode or whatever, and then you get a nice little bit of hold music. Bit of elevator
nice
hold music.
It just reminded me of, you know, how they used to do the old test cards when channels were off air, and they go, and now some music, and they'd just be the test card with it gave me those vibes. But yeah, it was sweet, and he's got a lot of repairs to do. I mean, what was it? His legs are crushed. One eye's just gone, and but he discovers a way out. He discovers a way he can get help by severing his own hand and attaching said eye to said hand, which somehow then has power.
I guess his hand has its own independent battery source.
Right. Is that the continuity line?
I have no. That's my headcanon.
I feel with Red Dwarf you have to do a lot of headcanon for some parts because the creators, for whatever reason, just don't want to give it to you at all. So they're like, do you know what I mean? It feels, we've said this before, but it feels very much like they'll say, here's a thing. We're not going to explain why it's a thing, but it's a thing. And then for nerds like us, like you say, to headcanon our way out of it.
I like the fact that I like the joke about the fact that his short-term memory is gone. And the joke is that he just keeps on recording, like he's doing like a little memo back. Yeah, he just keeps on mentioning that his short-term memory is gone, as if he's saying it for the first time.
Yeah, and Robert Llewellyn does that. So, I mean, again, we've praised him before, but I guess for a lesser actor, that joke would have gotten stale very quickly. But like you say, he just makes it sound fresh every time, and that's what makes it work. And it's just another example of how brilliant it is. but the hand travels back. And do they say it's a pod? It's not a Starbug, is it? It's like a pod of some kind.
No, I'm guessing it's like an escape pod from Starbug.
Yeah.
So
Something
small.
like that.
It must be quite small.
Something small, and the sentient hand arrives on Red Dwarf and quickly finds its way to Lister. But as it finds its way, Holly informs him that, it's kind of like a tarantula, and Lister does not like tarantulas, which then leads into a scene with Kat at the keyboard. Now, what did you think of this scene, Phil? I called it the typing scene.
I really liked it because it crawls up Lister's leg straight, first of all, doesn't it? And so he's kind of frozen and Kat comes in. So to communicate with Kat, he's typing on the keyboard. I thought it was good because Kat initially thinks he's doing like an adventure game.
Yeah,
text
which
adventure
is a big
game.
throwback, isn't it? Yeah.
And at one point, I think, what does he say? He says like, "Oh, it's crawling up my leg. I think it's making a nest."
Yeah.
And Kat is like, "Ask Gandalf the wizard to give you a potion or something like that."
That's what I do. Yeah. Oh, it was such a lovely throwback because for any younger viewers, before I guess graphics were a comparable thing for like RPGs and stuff. It was just text, wasn't it? It was just, you did it all through text.
Yeah, I used to spend some of my lunch breaks at school, like coding text adventures sometimes and making my own ones on some, like a QBasic or something like that. I can't remember what the program was, but yeah, they're fun.
Yeah.
And I've played the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy one. Have you ever played that one?
Oh, yes. No, I had a bit of a go at there was a Doctor Who one at one point.
Oh, yes, I've heard of that one. Yes.
Yeah, I only played a bit, but they're so interesting, isn't it? Because you look, I think when you look at it, they never look that interesting, but when you're actually doing it, you do get suckered in really quickly if it's
we've gone on a bit of a tangent here, but let's go with it. What I like about them is the fact that you could type in anything, and it's that kind of like testing, like, because it doesn't give you any clues, really, most text adventures, of what you can type. So you like, let's type in the most craziest thing possible and see if it works. And it just, sometimes it does. And it'll be like, oh, okay, that really works. And then sometimes I was watching, talking of the Doctor Who one, I was watching Doctor Who Online's YouTube channel. And they had Matt Chambers on there was doing a playthrough of it. And he, at one point, I think he goes up a tree and then he decides to go, he like types in go west or something like that. I can't remember which direction he went, but he had forgotten to come down from the tree. And so literally, I mean, the programmers had obviously thought of this in advance and that somebody might do this. And they'd programmed in the text that basically said, you step out from the tree and fall to your death.
Yeah.
Because you forgot to get down from the tree. It's just little things like that that make text adventures quite funny.
Yeah, they're so quaint, aren't they? And I hope the ones you made still exist on a floppy disk somewhere.
Afraid not. No, they're long gone.
Oh, never mind. But Kat joins the fray, and as soon as Kat realizes that this tarantula, as I think it is real, he also joins in the typing, which to me just made it even funnier, that whole back and forth. But then they actually discover what it is, and they think, oh, it's not a tarantula, and they set about going to pick up Crichton, and indeed Rimmer, who at this point has barely been mentioned in the episode and not even seen yet. And you start to think, what's happened to Rimmer? And I've just got to say, at this point, you know how Kat has this recurring thing of he'll always take a jibe at Rimmer when he can, and I know it's been a thing like all the way throughout, but it seemed like they went for it even more in this episode. And part of that I get, which we'll get onto later, but it just made me think like, a lot of those one-liners Kat has to Rimmer, I don't think, like, half the time they never really land with me. It just feels like being snidey for the sake of it. And I know it's like part of the character and it's it's probably just the comedy. It just doesn't work for me half the time. I just think, oh, look, another snide remark.
I think I said this before, but especially the one, he tends to go back to especially things like if there was one, I think, it might have been last week or a few weeks ago where Rimmer got taken away somewhere and he was like, quick, let's go before they bring him back. And the kind of the variations on that keep coming from Kat, and I think they do get tired quite quickly. I mean, it's like, yeah, we get the point now. You don't need to do the same joke over and over again. You don't like the guy. Okay.
Yeah, well, that's it. And it's like, yeah, they do change what he says every week, but like you say, it's ultimately the same thing. It's basically saying, I don't like Rimmer in a 1,000 different ways, but it just, yeah, it's wearing on me a bit now, I think. I'm like, can we give Cat dialogue that isn't just a snide, even though, yeah, that is a big part of his character, but I wish it wasn't all we saw, I guess.
Yeah, I agree.
So, yeah. But they do set out to find, they find the damaged Crichton, and Lister seemingly repairs him, even though Crichton was, I think, quite sort of repairs him at first. But
has a lot of spare parts, though, you know.
Yeah,
it's like when you build an IKEA wardrobe and you're left with like a whole handful of parts. You're like, I'm sure these should go somewhere, but well, never mind. I'm sure it will survive.
Nah, just let it go. Continuity once again. But they set out to find Rimmer, and we see, they're going out in Starbug, which is like all terrain. I didn't look like it was hovering. It looked like it was rolling on wheels. You know,
it was. They mentioned caterpillar tracks. They said extend the caterpillar tracks. That's right. So this is a new feature that we didn't know Starbug had. It has caterpillar
Starbug,
tracks
again,
and another new. Well, maybe the previous Starbugs didn't have this feature, and this is the latest model. They ordered it especially.
If I'd have known this, we should have done a Starbug count. Like, we should have counted how many times we've seen a supposedly new Starbug, but...
Yeah, maybe I'll do, like, a super edit of all the times Starbug's been destroyed or something and put it up on my YouTube channel.
You should. I'm sure it'll be numerous, especially as we go on. But this is where we learn, of course, that where they are is what is known as a Simoon, which, as I mentioned in the synopsis, terraforms itself around the occupants of the planet. Now, I thought about this, because that implies, it was all like the darkest aspects, as we learned for Rimmer, but we didn't really see any examples for Crichton, did we, in the beginning? But I guess that was to preserve the secret of where they were.
Well, what do you mean? Examples of Crichton's psyche? Is that?
Yeah, like the... Or was there that I just missed? I'm not sure.
No, I think it's because he's not... mind you, then I suppose, in a way, neither is Rimmer. I was going to say he's not an organic creature, but then neither is Rimmer. So I don't know.
But they get around that, don't they? Oh, he has a physical presence here all of a sudden.
Yes, that's true. I don't know if I assume the planet has just picked on one person to focus on and
I guess that makes sense.
Yeah, because it doesn't take anything from Lister when he arrives either.
No, or any of them, yeah.
Or any of them, yeah. So it's kind of all Rimmer. It's like it's the planet is
it's just all
latched
Rimmer.
Onto him.
Of course it is. So, speaking of him, we finally see him nearly halfway through the episode, one of his probably latest appearances. And at first I was like, oh, he looks like Christ. Because I think we can all agree it looks like, at first, it looks sort of, he's
got like a thing on his head.
Yeah, he's hanging on not hanging. He's bound to a cross-like thing, and I mean, it was funny. I found it funny, but I was like, "Oh, right, okay. Are we going for a sort of Passion of the Christ sort of thing?" But
I don't know. Because it's all his psyche, so you can imagine that kind of imagery being somewhere in the mix of his psyche.
Well, that he thinks he's like Christ, and everyone just hates on him because no one likes him.
Maybe. Yeah,
it could be. I mean, yeah, he is pretty egotistical.
I do know throughout all of this scene, though, he's very, very calm for being kidnapped by people, from quite creepy people in hooded robes with glowing eyes, being dragged who knows where. And even when he's tied up and everything, and he's he's quite calm. He's making quips.
Look, I don't know who you are or what you think you're doing, but I demand my right to a phone call.
He's he's much less cowardly than I expect Rimmer to be.
He was saying things that I guess the stereotypical term. He's being like that British customer who like just is asking questions and demanding things, because he is in a way. He's like, I demand this, I demand that, and it's just that is very Rimmer to a T. So I get what you mean. Like, he is a bit, I guess, braver, but not in like the traditional sense. More out of just his own personality, I guess. And he's tied for a sacrifice. And I wrote this in my notes. I never thought I would see Rimmer getting his nipples rubbed, and I never thought that was I never thought I'd see that, and I never thought I'd write that. But alas, here we are. Yeah, Arnold Rimmer gets his nipples rubbed in oil by two women, and it's
two scantily dressed women.
Scantily dressed women, and
then they leave.
and then they leave. What did you think of this setup scene then? Because they say, they're preparing him for the Master, and no, I know it's not a Doctor Who reference. Let it go. But what did you think of like that whole setup scene then?
It was okay. I got what they were going for. They were, clearly wanting the audience to think that's, okay, there's something sexual going on here.
Yeah.
He's getting oiled up by these women. He's getting his nipples rubbed, and then they leave, and then there's this kind of like implication that the Master is going to come and do something that needed him to be oiled up for. So there's some implication of things there, which thankfully we don't see, because that would be a bit too adult. I think they were skirting the line with nipples, I think.
They were pushing. I mean, rubbing man's nipples in oil. I was like, oh, okay, that's a
yeah. In terms of actual visuals that we actually see. No, it's okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Meanwhile, whilst that's happening, the remaining boys from the dwarf are making their way through the swamp of despair. And part of this scene made me laugh, and it was almost my funniest moment. It's the little frogs that go, useless.
Yes.
I don't know what it was. I could tell they were saying something at first, but only when they addressed it. I just found it really funny, the idea of these frogs just going, useless.
And the fact that you can just about make it out as well. It's like just there. You can just hear them say useless. And then there's the leech, the blood-sucking leech, which when they look at it, Lister recognizes it as having a human face and the face of Rimmer's mother.
Great gag. And then this scene was just full of great gags, to be honest. And like the gravestones as well, of like Rimmer's, I guess the more positive attributes, like what was it, self-esteem, confidence, the smaller
generosity, died aged 9.
Oh yeah, charm, which is minuscule, and hope. Hope wasn't really. I could be wrong. I'm trying to remember. I should have wrote in more detail, but all of the gravestones are obviously played for the laugh of it. But then when they come to hope, if they don't really play that for laughs, that's more of like oh wow, he's lost hope sort of thing.
Yeah, well, isn't it I think it was an unfilled grave, so it's kind of implying that he's about to lose all of his hope.
I don't think I saw that.
That's why they need to hurry up and rescue him, because he's about to. So I think the gravestone was there, and it was a dug hole, but he wasn't in it yet. If you see what I mean.
Yeah, I definitely didn't see the whole. See, atmospheric lighting, not when partially sighted people can't see it. But...
That's true. I was going to talk about the lighting actually, because
go for it.
I mean, the sets and everything on this. I mean, all of the swamp scenes. I mean, you could tell they were filmed in a studio. That was pretty obvious. But for what they had with it and what they had to work with, I think they did a really good job, especially with the lighting. And partly they didn't light it in it was quite dimly lit for that reason, so that it wouldn't probably show off the cheapness of it.
Probably,
but they had the moody atmospheric sort of red lighting and the mist, and which was lit from the side, and it all kind of worked for a sort of creating this atmospheric, moody, creepy scene, which I hadn't I hadn't thought of about how it might impact someone that has visual impairments, but so that's quite interesting to hear. So what could you do you feel you were missing out a lot of stuff in that?
There was, well, no, not on the whole, like you say. Despite it being in a studio, they mainly used the lighting to great effect. But again, like that gravestone was an example. I don't know if they might have mentioned it, in which case I've forgotten what they said about it not being filled. But I certainly didn't see, until you mentioned it there, I did not see an unfilled grave. But no, for the most part,
I don't think that was like massively visually obvious. I think I saw it, but I think it was sort of the implication of it more than anything.
Yeah, no, I don't think I missed out on any key things. I always try and, well, obviously I can't hold these shows to account because they've been made, but like what I try and look for in any show, as I say, my eyesight's not the best. It's like, well, if I can still, you can have obviously atmospheric and dingy lighting, but if I can still see like what the focus is, like the important thing, if that's the intention, not like a horror film where you're not meant to see it, that's different. But if it's like, this is what I'm meant to see, if I can't see that, that's when there's a problem. But no, this one, yeah, maybe just a bit too dim for me, but I'm sure if I like looked at it and paused it, I'd be like, oh yeah, there it is, you know. But it's just one of them.
Yep.
And Rimmer eventually meets the Master, which turns out to be, I wrote, well, it's his self-loathing represented, but I sort of wrote, like, from what we saw of it, a very skinny xenomorph from Alien.
Well, interestingly, I found this on the IMDb trivia section, which I always like to peruse.
Oh, yeah.
The self-loathing creature was apparently based on an unused design from Doctor Who.
Really?
That's what it says here. There are no links to corroborating evidence, but that's what it says.
I mean, I could, you know, late 80s, early 90s, I could believe that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's interesting that we don't see a full body shot. We only see like the top half or the head as it crawls out of the hole, and then the legs and the tail, and we get a bit of a shadow as well.
Yeah,
but
we get a kind of silhouette kind of look to it as well.
Do you think that was partly a budgetary? Do you think they probably wanted to go for like, you know, like a polymorph thing, like a full-on creature? Because when you cut around like that, obviously being that it's, you know, it's only featuring in one episode, it's not gonna, well, I assume it's not gonna come back. Is it a thing of do you think maybe they wanted to and then couldn't for some reason, or would you think it was always the intention?
It's probably a cost-cutting measure, isn't it? They therefore didn't have to build as much, and they working with what they've got really for the budget they could do.
Yeah, the voice was pretty cool though.
Yeah, was it Chris Barry voicing it? I assume it was. I mean, he's so good at voices. Sometimes it's hard to tell, but
and it was slightly modulated as well, wasn't it? So it could have been,
But giving it's meant to be his self-loathing, I assume it was.
Stop your putrid whining, you dank tuft of rectal pubic hair.
Another interesting fact about this monster, we said, I said earlier that maybe it stops before it goes too far, the sexual things. Well, it could have gone further, because apparently there was the script called for this creature to threaten, or it might be this creature. It says the Master. This is the Master, isn't it? This creature. Yes. The script called for the Master to threaten Rimmer with a large phallus.
Oh, Christ.
The item was even crafted by the effects team, but eventually deemed too risque to show on television.
Yeah.
Its shadow is seen briefly on the wall along with the shadow cast by the Master. So I might have to go back and just see if I can see that, because I didn't clock it first time round.
I did not see that, and I'm kind of glad that I wasn't able. One of the few times I'm glad I can't see it. But I think they made the right choice. That is a little bit too risque for BBC. A little bit too far. A little bit too far.
Even after the watershed.
That's verging into early hours of the morning, random dodgy channel that you flick through at a sleepover sort of thing, you know. But the boys from the dwarf do come to Rimmer's rescue, of course. Their bazookoids seem to work at first, but not completely as the self-loathing returns. But they do free Rimmer. And I've got to say, Crichton does a joke here, like, you know, an old Android phrase in binary. I've got to be honest, I found it a little weak and unnecessary, to be honest. It just, it didn't feel like, I'm sure he could have done that joke elsewhere, but, you know, in the scene, they've just freed him, they're talking about escaping, and I know, like, the whole point of the phrase is he's saying, it's Android phrase for, you know, basically don't wait around, you know, get going.
Which is exactly what he's doing, which is the joke,
Yeah, I don't know, it just didn't work for me. I really didn't like it.
No.
Yeah.
But the bit just before that, I did like how they effectively defeated the monster and they don't know this yet, and they don't realize it yet, but because they say that they won't, you know, he's part of the crew, and of course they're going to come back for him, and that gives him this little boost, which then pushes the monster back.
That's right.
I like that. That's nice. The crew don't get it, and I don't know if we, the audience, are meant to get it. Well, I suppose it's one of those things that you might have picked up at that point. You might not have done, because obviously later on they go on to realize it themselves.
Yeah, I must admit, I only picked up on it when they realised it. I genuinely thought the bazookoids had, one of those cases of it seemed to work at first, but they maybe weren't powerful enough. But no, honestly, I didn't clock it until he mentioned it, so it had a good effect for me. Because when I did realise it, I was like, oh yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So no, I was happy with that. But in their attempt to escape, Starbug gets caught in Starbug can't catch a break, can it? It's stuck in quicksand, unfortunately.
Quicksand, which, any child of the 90s was petrified of quicksand. Everything. Yeah. I don't know what it was, but the 80s and 90s, TV was full of people getting swallowed by quicksand. And then it sort of stopped being a thing, and everybody, you don't see it much anymore. But for a while there, it was like the scariest thing. I remember driving in my car past, I can't remember where, but and I remember seeing a sign for quicksand.
Oh, God.
Because we're along the coast somewhere, and I was going, and that generally, even though we were nowhere near it and we were on the road and we were perfectly safe, I was terrified. I was like, well, there's quicksand over there.
Hey, go watch out for the quicksand, man.
Got to watch out for that quicksand. I blame the movies and TV.
Blame all the films.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's just before that, actually. Sorry, I've jumped ahead a little bit. They explain to Rimmer where he is, that this is a Psy moon and it's all his sort of demons coming out. And one of the funniest moments was, it's like...
What is there one could possibly loathe about me? Would you like the list, sir?
Just the way he delivers it is so good.
Yes.
And then proceeds to give the list as well. And then again, Chris Barry's response after all that list, oh, that, again, which I think he's done that before, hasn't he? Someone's reeled something to him, he's gone, oh, that. He just does that
their
so
judgment
well.
episode, there was stuff, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. He's just very good at that sort of nonchalant, I guess. And then being like, oh, yeah, that thing. And also, just whilst it's in my mind, Starbug is stuck in quicksand. Now, I watched this episode on BritBox just because I'm on trial at the minute. I didn't watch it on Blu-ray because I'm lazy, quite frankly. And the shots of Starbug in quicksand, to me, looked like a bit of early CGI. It didn't look like model work. And I'm wondering, well, A, is it? And if it is that just a BritBox thing? So I know you've mentioned before sometimes some of the streaming services use versions, of effects that are more modern than the original TV versions.
There was once when I thought I spied it, but I don't know. I didn't notice that myself, so
it could just be me, but just I don't know the little movements of it. It didn't, considering what we've seen before, of Starbug as a model. This just didn't look like a model. It looked CGI, but I could be wrong. I mean, if you know and you're listening to this on YouTube, please let us know in the comments because I'm really curious if that is a alteration. Because 1992, CG was around, but it looked too good for 1992. If you get me, it looked too modern. So I don't know. I have to find out. Yeah, so they're stuck in quicksand and they won't get out because the demons are too strong, all this self-loathing, etc. And the ultimatum is self-loathing demands that it wants Rimmer. And if they give him up, then the others can go free. To which they have a little meeting, the other three, in the cockpit. And there's only one option, isn't there, Phil?
They've got to be nice to him.
Shock, and they have to be nice. They have to tell him that they love him. And of course, this fills them all with absolute... Well, I don't know what the phrase is. They're not too pleased about it, really.
Especially Kat.
I
think Kat hates
this is what I meant, especially Kat. But I've got to say, though, the thing we were saying earlier about, he jabs at Rimmer too much, I feel it works in this context, absolutely. Yeah. I just think
if there was one episode where it makes the most sense, it is probably this episode.
Yeah, I think it's more of the random jabs I'm tired of, when it's just in everyday conversation they have, I'm just like, okay, we get it, just stop. But their faces when they emerge from the cockpit are hilarious, and they're about to try it. And they're all just sort of half smiling, but you can see, and again, especially Kat, the pain behind his eyes. He's like, oh, God.
And Kat is kind of still resisting. He doesn't really say anything. The best he gets out of it is that the other two say something nice and they say, we really love you, man. And Kat can just go yeah, they really do. About them. He can't say quite bring himself to say that he does. He can't bring himself to even lie and say that he does too in order to save their lives.
Yeah, that was a potential funniest for me when I think Crichton and Lister say, "Oh, we do care about you," and Kat just goes, "Yeah, they do care about you." It's just
That's the one, yeah.
Yeah.
And then Crichton's kind of a bit OTT about it.
Way OTT.
But Lister, I generally, there were moments where I was like, some of this could be real. He's probably exaggerating it a bit, but I kind of felt like it was really good acting from him anyway. But it kind of felt like, okay, some of the growth we've seen between the two of them, they get on each other's nerves, but we have said before that there is a bond, there is a some kind of genuine friendship there as well.
Yeah. Like to go with a cliche, they are very much like an old married couple. They sort of don't get on all the time, but they have I guess they have like a common ground. And like you say, when he does say "I love you, man," that there feels like a tinge of truth to it.
Yeah.
It's just, as you say, really good acting from Craig Charles compared to Crichton, who's going, "I think people need to touch more," which is a line which for some more modern ears might seem a bit like, whoa, but obviously, it was done in jest of the joke and what was going on. But you know what I mean? You hear it and you think, oh, be careful where you say that. Like,
yeah.
Yeah, but of course it's all done for a big group hug, and I think this is the first time we've seen them all like group hug. I'm not saying they do it regularly, but I think it's the first time.
I think so.
Yeah.
And then of course it's helping every time they give him a little bit of a boost in confidence and everything. The ship manages to like get up a little bit more and almost break free, and so we get to see this is working, and then we get the ghosts. We get some ghosts.
Oh, the random ghosts who look like the Three Musketeers.
Because they've restored his self-confidence, they've restored his self-respect. That means that the ghosts of those elements of him come up and they fight the bad elements of his psyche.
They do.
It's a bit of a random scene, but got a bit of action, sword fighting in there.
I've got to say, the Hooded Legion, I think they're called, just look like tall Jawas.
I'm glad I'm not the only one that thought that. I was trying to place it, and I was like, it's kind of something Star Warsy, isn't it? I know I've seen them before, yes, and but I couldn't think of the name, so I didn't say anything.
It's just
yes.
the little red eyes and the black hoods. I was like, they're just tall Jawas. Like that's
the Jawas in black cloaks. That's
pretty much. They just needed to say something similar to that Houdini, whatever they say, and then you'd be full on Star Wars knockoff there. But as you say, they vanquish the demons and boost Rimmer enough that they're able to break free from the planet. To which then Rimmer goes in the cockpit and just says, "That was all phony, wasn't it? You don't actually care, you actually care about me, do you?" To which all three unanimously say, "No." And then that's it. That episode just, and again, it ends so quickly. He's literally like, "It was all fake." Yes. End.
Harsh. It's so harsh. So I felt sorry for Rimmer. I think this is maybe the second episode where I've ever felt sorry for Rimmer at the end. Just think what could have been. They managed to restore some of his self-confidence, some of his self-respect, get rid of some of his self-loathing, which has basically created the person he is. Imagine if they had continued that, how he could have improved as a person, and what changes it would have brought. But of course, it is a sci-fi, so you have to reset to the status quo at the end of every episode.
Well, that's pretty much what it is. But my God, I know we talked about quick endings, but this is probably they break free and they basically say they've lied to him, and that's it. Like that's the episode.
Yeah, I don't know. It wasn't the worst quick ending for me.
Oh no, it's not the worst
kind
offender.
The joke kind of worked. It was fine.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel if they tried to elaborate it a bit more, like, gone on a speech about why they lied to him and all that, then it would have been worse maybe. But yeah, the no is quite funny because of how, as you say, how harsh it is. But yeah, folk, that again, that is Terraform. That's it. That's the end. There's no more. And now, well, we do some of our regular segments on the show, including our favourite character of the episode. So Phil, who is it for you this time?
My favourite character this time is actually going to be Crichton.
Ooh, okay. Why Crichton?
He just has some of the best moments, I think, in it. Because, yes, the focus is, well, from the point we see him again, because obviously he isn't there for the first part of the episode, but it's kind of Rimmer and it's Rimmer's psyche, and there is a lot of good stuff from him as well. But, I don't know, it's just something about the way, I can't even put my finger on it. There's just the delivery of so many lines that I liked from Crichton this time. The way it starts off the episode as well. I like, that him being the focus of that scene worked really well.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm just going to give it to Crichton this week. Another one for Crichton.
Another one for... Oh, we do love our Crichton on the show. Well, mine's different from yours this time around. My favourite character is going to Lister on this occasion. I mean, some of the best comedy from him recently, like that, the typing scene, again, Craig Charles sells that absolutely. And like we said, but then on the flip towards the end, like the more, I guess, caring side of him, like we're saying about his affection for Emma, how there's a tinge of like truth to it, perhaps. Yeah,
which makes it feel even more hurtful that at the end he goes
they
no
just
along
go,
with the
no.
rest of them. Yeah.
Yeah, but no, I feel like this was a good example, and they've all done it before, all the lead cast, but we've seen like the two different sides. We've seen like the funny Lister and then the more, I guess, compassionate Lister. No, I just really warmed to him this episode, so yeah, I'm going to give it to Lister. And what about your funniest moment?
My funniest moment was the hug.
The
in
hug.
particular, Crichton, this was one of his funny moments where he's just kind of like, he's saying, I think we need a group hug. And it's the way he's moving. It's a kind of like slightly tilted back, hands out, sauntering over, like in a kind of, I can't even describe it. That and his tone of voice and the fact and the line you referenced earlier, which I found quite funny.
I don't think people touch enough, sir. I think people should touch more.
It's very like androidy without being too robotic. It's like, yeah, it's good. No, it's really good selection. Mine was it might be obvious, but it's the typing scene. I don't know why. I think it just, like we said, it evoked like memories of like the whole text thing, but then also it was just well done. Like the way they cut between the shots, what they were actually typing on the computer screen. Even the end, it was a bit corny, but like the O and then various signs to symbolize swear. It was fun. I really enjoyed it, especially when Kat joined in too. So that's my funniest scene. Learn your text adventures, kids. If you've never tried one, definitely try one. And lastly, what we do on the show, for anyone who's new, is we rate each episode out of 10 scutters. So Phil, this time around, how many scutters out of 10 are you giving Terraform?
I'm giving this episode 8.5 scutters out of 10.
Nice, solid.
Solid one. It was good. It was a good episode. There wasn't any bits that I thought were bad in it particularly. There wasn't any bits that I thought weaker. I enjoyed the jokes. I enjoyed the the stuff, the character stuff from Crichton, as I said, was very funny. The Rimmer and his various psyches. It was just a good, solid episode. I think it was structured really well as well. It kind of didn't hang about, because sometimes Red Dwarf has this thing where they'll have a top 5 or 10 minutes which bears no relation really to the rest of the plot. Yeah. Whereas this one kind of went straight into it. We had an initial situation which then kind of went on. The second situation evolved naturally from that first one. So I just think it was structured really well. And yeah, it was a good episode.
No, solid shout. Mine's actually going to be a bit lower. Mine's going to be 7 out of 10 for this one. I did enjoy it. I thought the concept was cool. This is one of those rare instances where normally, like we normally do, I have a lot of reasons to like back it up or whatever. But this one was honestly just a gut feeling, Phil. I've got to be honest. I couldn't find it in myself to rate it higher, and I'm not sure why that is. Some negative points I mentioned, like some of the jabs Kat makes. The more to when they're trying to be positive, they work, but the rest of the time they are really starting to wear down a bit now. But yeah, no, I'm just, as I say, I'm going to go with my gut, and I'm just going to give it a 7, because that's what I feel in my heart of hearts. So, yeah, well, folks, that's Terraform, episode 3 of series 5 of Red Dwarf. And if you tune in every week, we review each episode. So it'll be episode 4 next week. We're getting near the end of series 5 already. Yeah, it's Quarantine next time, which is I will say, one of the fan favorites. Yes, let's find out if it holds up. Yes, and you should tune into that one as well, because we will be joined by a special guest it's time for another special guest, isn't it, Phil?
It is.
Of the series. So definitely don't miss Quarantine, and I'm sure that title will resonate with all of you because we've all been doing it.
Oh God, yeah. We hadn't thought about that. Yeah.
I see that word now, and it's burned into my brain. Like if I ever see a film about quarantining, I'm like, oh God, here we go. But
I'm currently, in fact, socially isolating right now.
Oh, but hopefully not for too much longer.
No, hopefully not. Just need to. It's somebody in the house needs to go get a test, and then hopefully it'll be fine.
Hopefully all will be well. But in the meantime, whilst you are socially isolating, Phil, where can the people find you?
Oh, you can find me on my YouTube channel, which you may well be listening to this podcast on. You might be, you might not be. You might be listening to it on Apple Podcasts or Google Podcasts or one of the many podcasting services you can get our podcast on. But if you're not, if you are listening on one of those podcasting services things, then do come over to my YouTube channel because I've got lots of other content as well as this podcast, like Doctor Who content and MCU and Star Trek content and a whole lot of other geeky pop culture. So come and find me there. It's just my name, Philip Hawkins, with Philip with one L. You can find me there.
Awesome. And if you want to check out my stuff, I'm Adam Martyn with a Y on YouTube. But like Phil, I do videos on Doctor Who and various other pop culture interests that I have. You can find me on Twitter at Adam Martyn AMTV for my daily ramblings. And we also have a Twitter account for the podcast. It's called, it's at All Dead Dave Pod. Damn that Twitter character limit, but All Dead Dave Pod. Give us a follow for updates on the show, special guest announcements, and just the occasional Red Dwarf post meme or GIF. We do like those as well. So give us a follow
and if you
there.
just want to say hi to us, you can do it that way as well.
Come say hello. We're friendly. We're friendly people. And as Phil said, if you are watching on YouTube, as mentioned earlier, please give us your feedback in the comments. On a lot of the audio streaming ones like Spotify, there is no way to really leave feedback. So if you do want to leave feedback,
you can leave a review for the podcast as a whole. Do that.
Please do that, yeah. But if you have specific points, leave them on YouTube, and we will give them a read. But yeah, that's another one in the can, Phil. So I guess it's all left to be said is thank you for listening, folks, and we'll catch you next week for Quarantine. Bye bye.
See you then.